He entered the jungle, searching for silence and solitude. What he found would test his courage, change his destiny, and awaken something wild within. At the edge of a forgotten village, buried deep within the emerald heart of South Asia's jungle, lived a man named Nathan. He had once belonged to the city, its noise, its chaos, its constant demands. But the endless hum of traffic and crowded streets had drained him. He craved silence, space, a return to something real. So, he left everything behind and disappeared into the jungle. Every day, Nathan wandered the wild paths around his new home, breathing in the scent of damp earth and blooming vines. The jungle didn't speak with words, but it spoke nonetheless, in rustling leaves, distant bird calls, and the steady pulse of life. Then came that one blistering summer day. The sun hammered down through the canopy, turning the air thick and still. Sweat clung to Nathan's skin as he moved slowly through the brush. That's when he heard it. A sound, muffled, distant, but unmistakable. A cry. It wasn't a bird call or an animal's usual call. This was different. It carried something raw, panic, desperation. Nathan stopped, heart suddenly alert. The sound came again, louder this time. A choked, pleading cry from somewhere beyond a cluster of trees near a swampy clearing. His instincts kicked in. He dropped his bag and headed toward it. Vines tugged at his ankles. Sharp branches raked across his arms. The thick, humid air made each breath feel like breathing through cloth. But Nathan didn't slow down. The cries grew louder, more frantic. He pushed through the last of the undergrowth, and what he saw stopped him cold. In a muddy pool carved by recent rains, a tiger cub was drowning. Its tiny body twisted and flailed, its head barely above the surface. Each frantic splash grew weaker. Its eyes were wide with terror, locked on nothing and everything at once. Nathan froze. A wild animal, a tiger, even if young. But this wasn't a moment for fear. If he didn't act now, the cub would die. He scanned the area. No sign of the mother. Quick decision. He stripped off his shoes, rolled up his sleeves, and stepped into the water. The mud sucked at his feet. Cold slime wrapped around his legs as he waded deeper, each step harder than the last. The water was deeper than it looked, up to his chest now, but he kept his eyes locked on the cub. "It's all right, little one," he whispered. "I'm here. I've got you." Something in his voice cut through the panic. The cub stilled, just for a moment. Nathan moved fast. He reached out, sliding his arms under the trembling body and lifted it from the water, lighter than he expected. Cold, shivering. He held it close, pressing it to his chest, trying to share his warmth. Step by step, he made his way back to the bank. Once on solid ground, he laid the cub gently in the grass. It was soaked, frightened, but alive. Nathan knelt beside it, breathing hard. Relief surged through him. But it didn't last long, because that's when he saw something glinting in the foliage. Metal. Carefully, he moved toward it, brushing aside the tall grass, then stopped, horror blooming in his chest. The mother tiger was there, trapped. Her back leg was caught in a vicious iron trap, its jagged jaws sunk deep into her flesh. Blood stained the ground. The chain rattled as she struggled, but she was too weak, too injured. Her body was taut with pain, eyes wild with panic as she stared toward the cub she couldn't reach. She hadn't abandoned her child. She'd been imprisoned. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. A full-grown tiger, wounded and cornered, was one of the most dangerous things on earth. But leaving her like this wasn't an option. He stepped closer, slowly, hands open. The tigress growled, low, deep, full of pain and warning. but she didn't lunge. "I'm not here to hurt you," Nathan whispered. "I'm here to help." He crouched by the trap, heart pounding in his chest. The metal was old, rusted, but brutally strong. The teeth of the device were sunk deep. Each movement from the tigress sent fresh blood spilling to the forest floor. Nathan leaned in, inspecting the mechanism, trying to ignore the heat of the tigress's breath just feet away. His mind raced. He needed to act fast, but one wrong move, and this rescue could turn into a fatal mistake. He began to examine the trap and the lock, thinking of how to free the tigress without causing her more suffering. But before Nathan could take any action, he heard it. The crunch of dry leaves under deliberate footsteps, and the low, guttural murmur of voices, weaving their way through the jungle like a warning. His blood ran cold. Someone was coming, and they weren't wandering tourists. Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much. He instinctively ducked behind a fallen log, his eyes sweeping the area. He needed to act fast. Reaching down, he gently lifted the still shivering cub and scanned for a hiding spot. Just a few feet away, a thicket of thick ferns and vines formed a natural cover. Perfect. "Stay here," he whispered, almost a breath. He nestled the cub under the foliage, its damp fur blending into the shadows. The little tiger whimpered, confused and scared, but didn't resist. Nathan gave it a final, reassuring look, then crept to a position where he could see without being seen. A few moments later, two men emerged from the dense brush. They moved with purpose, rugged, silent, armed. Rifles hung over their shoulders and their clothes were stained with blood, sweat, and mud. One of them had a heavy leather bag clanking with metal. Traps, chains, tools of pain. Nathan felt a slow, rising fire inside him. These weren't just hunters. They were poachers, and they had come to finish what they started. As they approached the trapped tigress, she let out a low, rattling growl, her voice rough from pain and exhaustion. One of the men chuckled. "She's still got some fight in her," he said. "Won't matter much longer," the other replied, unzipping his bag. "Once she's out of that trap, we put her down. A clean shot, then straight to skinning. Pelt like that? We're talking thousands." Nathan's hands curled into fists. The injustice of it made his whole body tense. He had come to the jungle seeking peace. Instead, he found greed poisoning beauty. Violence crouched beneath green leaves. He looked around. No weapons, no phone, no help, just him. And a wrenching need to do something. The tigress tried to lunge again, roaring weakly as the chain bit into her leg. Her eyes darted wildly, half panic, half protectiveness. She still didn't know if her cub was alive. One poacher pulled out a ring of keys. "Let's make this quick," he said, crouching near the trap. That's when Nathan's instincts kicked in. He scanned the ground and spotted a smooth stone the size of a fist. Grabbing it silently, he drew his arm back and hurled it deep into the opposite direction from the cub. Crack. It landed with a convincing thud, snapping a dry branch. Both poachers jumped. "What was that?" one whispered, raising his rifle. "Could be another cat," the other muttered, "or someone watching." "Go check it out," said the first. "I'll stay here." As one man cautiously disappeared into the undergrowth, the other knelt again beside the tigress. Now Nathan launched into action. Low to the ground, he slipped through the underbrush like a ghost. He darted past a hanging vine, avoiding a hornet's nest, his breath shallow. He made it to the poacher's scattered gear, shovels, ropes, and a heavy iron wrench. He grabbed it. It felt ice cold in his hands, heavy, solid, real. With the tool in hand, Nathan crept toward the tigress. She saw him coming. Her growl faded. She was breathing fast, chest heaving, but her golden eyes locked onto his. There was pain, yes, but also recognition. He wasn't like the others. He had saved her cub. "I'm here," he whispered, kneeling beside the trap. "I know you're scared, but I promise I'll help." The metal trap was old and rusted, but its grip was vicious. Nathan wedged the wrench into the lock, twisting, pulling. His arms burned. Time slowed to a crawl. The jungle, for a moment, seemed to hold its breath. Clank. The trap sprang open. The tigress jerked back, leg free. She stumbled, collapsed briefly, then rose. Blood dripped from her wound, but she was upright. Her chest rose and fell. Her muscles twitched. Her eyes stayed locked on Nathan's. He stepped back slowly, raising his hands to show he meant no harm. Then a shout. "Hey, what the hell?" The second poacher had returned, and both now stared at the freed tigress, and at Nathan holding the wrench. "You son of a—" One of them raised his rifle. Nathan froze. He dropped the wrench and lifted his hands. "Please," he said. "Nobody has to get hurt, just let her go." But they weren't listening. Their faces were twisted in rage. "You just cost us more than you know," one snarled. "And you're not walking away." They took a step forward. Nathan closed his eyes. He had no defense, no weapon, no backup, just a prayer. Roar! The jungle exploded. The tigress burst forward from the shadows with a sound that made the air tremble. She placed herself squarely between Nathan and the rifles, her body low, tail thrashing, teeth bared in primal fury. The poachers flinched. One took a step back. "She's protecting him?" Another roar, louder, deeper. The tigress moved forward, each step deliberate, and they finally panicked. "Forget it! Go!" They turned and ran, tripping over roots, dropping their rifles, crashing through the jungle like frightened children. Silence fell again. The tigress stood still, watching the direction they had fled. Her body shook with pain and adrenaline. Then, slowly, she turned. Her eyes met Nathan's. He couldn't move, couldn't speak. There was something ancient in her gaze, something beyond words. Not human, but not wild either, a bond forged in fear, risk, and mercy. She limped away, not into the darkness, but toward the ferns. With a soft grunt, she called. The cub emerged. The mother sniffed it, licked its wet fur, then looked back once more at Nathan. And for the briefest moment, she bowed her head. Then, with the cub at her side, she turned and disappeared into the emerald folds of the forest. Nathan sank to his knees, not from exhaustion, from awe. The jungle had fallen silent again, as if every leaf, every creature held its breath with him. The echoes of the tigress's roar still shimmered in the air like heat waves, and Nathan felt as if he had stepped out of time, out of the world he knew and into something ancient and sacred. He had expected solitude in the wild. He had hoped for peace. But what he had found was something deeper, a moment of connection that went beyond words, species, or reason. Then, a soft rustle behind him. He turned quickly, alert again, expecting perhaps an animal, or worse, the return of the poachers. But it was neither. From the shadows of the jungle, a small figure stepped out. A child. Barefoot, thin, covered in smudges of mud and dried leaves that camouflaged him against the forest. His dark eyes were wide and steady as they took in Nathan, the wrench, the empty trap, and the spot where the tigress had vanished with her cub. Nathan's breath caught in his throat. The boy said nothing at first. He walked slowly forward and knelt beside Nathan. In his tiny, calloused hand, he held out a small wooden carving. A tiger. Rough, worn, clearly handmade but full of care. Nathan accepted it carefully. "My sister carved it," the boy whispered. His voice was soft, almost carried away by the breeze. "She said the spirits of the jungle protect people with kind hearts." Nathan stared at the carving, stunned by the gesture, by the sudden appearance of this wild-eyed child in a place so remote. "Where are your parents?" he asked gently. The boy looked down. "The jungle took them," he murmured. "A long time ago. Since then, I've been alone, watching, listening." "You live out here?" Nathan asked, incredulous. The boy nodded. "I know the forest, the animals. I saw what you did. I saw you save her cub." He pointed toward the ferns where the tigress had disappeared. "She saw it too." Nathan felt a shiver crawl down his spine, not of fear, but of realization. This child had survived alone, not because he was hidden from the jungle, but because he had become part of it. "Come with me," Nathan said softly. "You don't have to hide anymore." The boy hesitated, studying Nathan's face. Then, slowly, he smiled. A small, cautious curve of the lips, like a sunbeam slipping through dense canopy. And in that moment, something shifted. Not just for Nathan, but for both of them. They walked back toward the village side by side, the wooden tiger clenched tightly in Nathan's hand. From that day forward, everything changed. Nathan adopted the boy as his own. Together, they became guardians of the jungle. Nathan taught the boy to read, to write, to speak the language of the village. The boy, in turn, taught Nathan the language of the forest, the meaning of each bird's cry, how to follow tracks without being seen, how to understand the rhythm of trees and the secrets of silence. The villagers, once skeptical of Nathan's solitude, came to respect him and the child by his side. They whispered stories around their fires, of a man and a boy who had seen the heart of the jungle, and been seen by it in return. Together they began to patrol the outer edges of the forest, dismantling traps, leaving warnings for poachers, planting trees where the earth had been scarred. They built a small sanctuary on the edge of the village, not just for animals, but for children who had been lost or abandoned, like the boy once was. And sometimes, on quiet nights, when the moon was full and the air still, the jungle would go silent once more. In those moments, Nathan and the boy would pause, listening. And from somewhere deep within the emerald sea of trees, they would see two golden eyes watching. Not with anger, not with fear, but with trust. And maybe, just maybe, with love. Because in saving a life, Nathan had done more than protect the wild. He had become part of it. And the jungle, in turn, had chosen to protect him too. Did you enjoy this story? Would you have done the same as Nathan to save the tiger cub? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Sometimes when you follow your heart and do the right thing, you don't just change one life, you change your own. Thanks so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.